It's 7 o'clock. I'd like to call the October 29th council meeting to order. Mr. Spalding, since it's really kind of the Jeff Spalding show this evening, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Lees, would you do the roll call, please?
Mr. Boyce?
Present.
Mr. Hampton?
Here.
Mr. Jensen?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. O'Connor?
Present.
Mr. Peterson?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Present.
Ms. Wiles?
Here.
Mr. Ayer?
Present.
Mr. President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes of the October 15th, 2019.
So
meeting.
moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries 9-0. Approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries 9-0. Petitions or comments by citizens who are present. I have none. If someone would like to speak, there's a card you need to fill out outside, and if you could pass it up to the clerk, I'd appreciate it. Mayor's report to council.
Thank you. Members of council, been a little bit busy. A couple things that I think I reported last time that were on my notes, but I did speak at a Kiwanis Chamber meeting in Carmel. I met a young president there. It's a new club, and I used to be a Kiwanian, and they kind of want to know a little bit about Noblesville, so it gave me an opportunity, I guess, to go down there and brag about what we've been able to accomplish here in the county seat. Had a meeting with Senator Braun's office. His representative for local government, he has a specific representative for local government, which is a good thing, Terry Seitz. He was a former mayor of Jasper. I've known Terry for a long time, but again, he's just calling on local cities and counties throughout the state. Celebrated the 10th anniversary of Next Spine. You may know that company. I hope you do. They are really an up and coming. They've done very well in the last 10 years. If they sold stock, I'd buy it. I think they got a lot of new event and innovative things coming, and really happy to celebrate that anniversary. I did name it Next Spine Day in the city of Noblesville. But they are wanting to expand, which I think we have an item on the agenda. I know we have an item on the agenda in that regard. Did by phone attend the Regional Strategy Council. That's the Indy Partnership. This morning I spoke to second graders. That's always fun. And today, I think I said this last time, I judged the employees of Lowe's chili cook-off. And I have to tell you, there were only 7, and they are not near as good of cooks as our staff is. So probably shouldn't have said that, but it is a fact. So, but anyway, and then tomorrow, as you may know, we have a State of the Schools by Dr. Niedermeyer. Tomorrow, I'm taking a tour of Finch Creek Park. Halloween is Thursday. For everybody, the trick-or-treating is 5:30 to 8:30, and I'm taking a young first grader to school on the 7th. And we have a ribbon cutting for the Spencer Farm Winery on the 8th. So a new winery, though, in the city of Noblesville. So that's all I have. Do you have any questions of me?
Yeah, the only comment I have, you had quite the chilly month of October.
I know.
Are you going straight into pumpkin pie next month?
I don't know. I'd like to pies would be better than, well, chili was good, but anyway, so.
Thank you.
Get a reputation to be a bad judge, that's all. Thank you very much.
I'd like to introduce Sheriff Dennis Quakenbush, the county sheriff here in Hamilton County. fairly newly elected. He's done a good job. We have a lot of mutual aid that comes from the sheriff, and hopefully we provide them with the same. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say thank you. We experience a great relationship with the city of Noblesville, particularly with public safety, police, and fire, and we look forward to the future and what that holds, and continuing that relationship. But this is my hometown, and we're really focused on keeping Hamilton County safe, and so I'm just proud of the city and proud of what you guys are doing. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And as a side note, I graduated with his father. I'd also like to introduce our Hamilton County Council President, Mr. Brad Beaver, and I think he has a few comments or bringing us up to date on some big things going on.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. My name is Brad Beaver. This year I'm the president of Hamilton County Council, and if you see a guy sneaking in the back door, it'll be Rick McKinney. He'll be president next year. And I don't have anything on any proposals or anything like that, but on my year of being the president of the council, I've been trying to do a goodwill tour. So I've been to all the cities and towns. I've been up north. Now I'm starting on the big four down south. Okay, so I really don't have anything specific. I come here in case you wanted to yell at us about something or have some thing you're really upset about, you can tell me. I also want to introduce Jeffrey Ginnenball. Jeffrey is a Noblesville grad. He's a senior at IUPUI, and he's been interning for the county council for the last couple of months. So I brought him with me. I said, take a picture, don't say nothing. But anyway, I just here as a goodwill tour, you know what I mean? I know that a lot of mayors and other councilors go around and meet with each other on a regular basis, but I have never seen that out of the county council. And I thought, well, I'll just take the opportunity to go out and just, you know, sometimes you'll read something in the paper or comment here or there. You're thinking, why did they say that or why did they do that? And you've got your stuff to take care of, and we've got our stuff to take care of. And but if you have any questions or concern, the council meets the first Wednesday of every month, right across the street over here. Do you have any concern, anything you want to bring up with me? I don't have anything in particular.
I really don't, other than we do anticipate a great partnership on Pleasant Street.
Yes, you know, me and you've been talking about that for how many years?
A long time. The gray hair is there when we started.
Well, you know, the bad thing, it tells you how old me and Brian are. We went to school with Dennis's father, and his name's Dennis. So when they said Dennis Quakenbush is running for sheriff, I thought, I know Dennis. Met him. Well, that's not the guy. Anyway, yes, we are looking forward to projects with Noblesville, and your engineer that used to be our engineer is on that job, so I'm sure you'll be well taken care of. Chris, did you say?
Yeah, I was just going to comment on Pleasant Street, like Mr. Ayers said. Obviously, I'm not sure the public always realizes that the county's responsible for the bridges.
Right.
And that's a huge part of that. And I know you have helped lead the charge for not just the White River Bridge, but Cicero Creek, and I appreciate your guys' commitment to work with us on that going forward.
Well, you know, I'm on the county council, but I also live in Noblesville, so I'm anxious to see progress on that.
We've been talking about it well before you went to high school. So.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So if you don't have anything for me, I just want, like I said, I just here. If you got something, feel free to come over to the county council. I do want to remind you that our system of government works a little bit different than yours. While the council's here and your mayor's sitting right here, the county council meets the first Wednesday of every month, unless we change the date. And the commissioners, our other part of county government, they meet couple days a week, and they meet at 12 o'clock noon. Okay, so that if you've got particular items, let me be as diplomatic as I can, what gets presented to one is not automatically related to the next. So if you've got a project that requires specific funding, you need to make 2 stops. Okay.
Or get you both in the same room. Like
Well, you can do that, but
I know you guys are capable of doing.
We very seldom take action on a ad hoc meeting. You know, we can, but all I'm saying is, you know, we're the funding source. They are the executive branch, and we've got some exciting projects coming down the line, and so if there's information that you think needs to get to the county council, bring it yourself, okay? That's all I got. Rick did show up, Rick McKinney, he is the
Can't let
vice
him off the
president.
hook. He's gonna
Huh?
have to come up here. Can't let
Come
him
on
off.
up here, Rick, and so they can all see who you are. We've served together for many years, and Rick will be president next year, so a lot of our exciting projects will fall into his domain.
Yes,
Yep.
yes. Thank you. Sorry I'm late. Had to work late, so.
That's all I got. You guys got
Great.
anything else? I'll let you get on about your city business.
All right.
Thank you very
We
much.
Thank you.
appreciate
Appreciate
you
it.
coming by. Moving on, council committee reports. Mr. Peterson.
Downtown District Committee met September 16th. We have finally got our hands around after a slow start. We have made almost a $1.5 million reinvestment in downtown since we started in 2017. We have a little bit left over. We're starting to work on our 2020 projects. The Levinson is moving along nicely. Again, the Noblesville Now campaign, for anybody who doesn't know, is the place to find out the latest and greatest with the Noblesville Now campaign. Track removal has started. It's out of 9th Street from Division up to Connor Street. The other projects that are underway, the Logan Street Bridge, Mr. Beaver left, I was going to ask him about that, but it's supposed to be done by the end of the year. It's moved up a little bit. We discussed the parking pilot. I think the only question we had was just kind of some of the details, 20-minute spots and ADA spots. Alley activation is moving along. We've gotten 2 RF responses to the RFP for the arches, and one of those artists has been selected and is currently working with Seminary Park for the arch, the entryway. Globe Asphalt made a presentation about the 1,000-mile marker. We're going to look at some other places to do that. Traffic weight restrictions, we've had some damage, trucks hitting dumpsters. We discussed ways to work on that, probably with cameras instead of bollards. It's another project. Seminary Park is coming along nicely. I can see it out in my office every day, and it's really looking good if anybody's not been by there. And after 3 years of working on it, the flower pots are in, so anybody who's not had a chance to see those. And they have got the evergreens in them through the winter. And that, we discussed Seminary, or Riverside Cemetery is in the district. We've never really talked about it, so we kind of went through some of the projects that are going on there, and Ms. Lees has done a great job of administrating that park cemetery. So thank you, and that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Any other committee reports? Ms. Wiles?
Mr. President, the Finance Committee met last Thursday, October 24th, and there are numerous items on this evening's agenda that we'll talk about later. But I did want to share with you that Mrs. Ramon came and shared with us updates on the city's health insurance plan that are going to be increasing quite a bit. And so we're working towards plan design changes, some premium increases both on the city and the employee side, and then spending down a portion of our insurance reserve fund to help mitigate those increases. We do have several recommendations with the Civil City budget that are amendments to the budget. The Finance Committee heard comments from other council members, and we are going to be recommending some reductions to the Civil City budget, and so those amendments will come later. And the claims do come to you with a recommendation from the Finance Committee.
Ms. Wiles, any other committee reports? With that, we'll move on to the approval of claims.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries 9-0. Previously discussed ordinance. Council consider ordinance 40-10-19, an ordinance adopting the 2020 operating budget. Mr. Spalding.
Mr. President, members of the council, Jeff Spalding, City Controller, and the first item before you, I have, as you know, a series of items this evening, and I guess this is the big one, so it's a little bit of anticlimactic that we're covering it first. But this is the second reading on the 2020 Civil City budget. The budget was introduced at the last meeting and went through fairly, detailed presentation of what it entails, and provided you all summaries, answered questions, so on and so forth. Have no additional presentation regarding the budget tonight, but am aware of the discussions that have happened in Finance Committee as well. So basically, I'm just here offering the 2020 proposed budget, for your actions and move toward adoption.
Any questions of Mr. Spalding?
Mr. President,
Mr. O'Connor?
not so much a question as a comment. I think that this budget process has been very well vetted. We've made some real progress with OpenGov and trying to accommodate some changes that have, needed to have been made. I think it will help streamline the process going forward. It's, I suppose, not lost on any of us. It takes a lot to get to this point, and I think we started this back when? In May? June. So there's several meetings, and of course, this is the thing that we are most responsible for as a group here. So we certainly do spend time and have a lot of meetings and discussions, and city department heads and everybody else is involved in making sure that we invest our tax dollars wisely. So Jeff and his team have done an admirable job, and I wanted to acknowledge that, and along with the administration and, of course, all of us and our activity, too. So kudos on a very well-done job. I know we haven't voted on it yet, but I'll give that to you at this point, and I think we've got a budget that will allow us to do a lot of good things for the citizens in 2020.
Taylor?
I would echo what Mr. O'Connor said, and I guess I will make a recommendation from the Finance Committee that we have a couple amendments we'd like to make. The first one being ordinance 40-10-19 to reduce the appropriation from the general fund by $1,317,686 for public safety communication services that will not be charged to the Silver City in 2020.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to amend the ordinance to be reduced by $1,317,386. It'll be a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries 9-0.
Mr. President,
Ms. Wiles?
I would make a motion to amend ordinance number 40-10-19 to reduce the appropriation from the general fund by $1,560,000 and to reduce the appropriation from the park fund by $1,249,200 for certain capital projects that will be funded from the annual capital improvement funds and not cash funded in 2020.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to reduce the Parks Fund and the Capital Improvement Fund, and I didn't.
General fund.
And the general fund, I'm sorry, I did not write the numbers down. That'll be a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries 9-0.
Mr. President,
Ms. Wiles?
I would move that we adopt ordinance number 40-10-19 as amended.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt ordinance 40-10-19 as amended. This will be a roll call vote. Ms. Lees?
Mr. Boyce?
Aye.
Mr. Hampton?
Aye.
Mr. Jensen?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor?
Aye.
Mr. Peterson?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Wiles?
Aye.
Mr. Air?
Aye.
9-0, the budget for 2020 is adopted.
Thank you. Just as a side comment, that brings us a reduction of the original budget by a little over $4 million. And I know the Finance Committee administration worked hard to get this budget a little more in line, and I appreciate all the work and effort that they put into it, along with all the work that the council and department heads put in earlier in the year. So I appreciate that.
Mr. President, if I may just add on to that by making these reductions, we now have a budget that's in the black, and we're actually adding to our cash. So I think that that's the right fiscal move for the city.
Other comments while we're on it? Moving on. Council to consider ordinance 4110-19, the salary ordinance for appointed officials and employees of the city of Noblesville for 2020. Ms. Ramon?
Good evening. As introduced at our last council meeting, before you is the 2020 salary ordinance, which includes an across-the-board base pay increase, and additional position changes and section changes are indicated with an X. As outlined in the attached letter, the changes include new position request, job title changes, changes of FLSA exempt status for a few of those positions, and additional pay adjustments. And I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions of Ms. Ramon? I see none. Have a motion.
Mr. President,
Ms. Wiles?
I'd make a motion that we approve ordinance number 41-10-19.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 41-10-19. This will be a roll call vote. Ms. Lees?
Mr. Hampton?
Aye.
Mr. Jensen?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor?
Aye.
Mr. Peterson?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Wiles?
Aye.
Mr. Boyce?
Aye.
Mr. Ayers?
Aye.
9-0, the ordinance is adopted.
Thank you. Council consider ordinance 42-10-19, the salary ordinance for elected officials for the city of Noblesville for 2020, as amended. Ms. Lees?
Yes, every fall I attend a conference which includes training by the State Board of Accounts, and after the salary ordinance for elected officials was adopted, I learned from the State Board of Accounts that they were requiring a little bit more in the salary ordinance. They want total compensation for elected officials included. And that just means adding a one sentence toward the end that says all elected officials are eligible for benefits. And the benefits that you're eligible for. We're hoping that that satisfies the State Board of Accounts. We will find out when the auditors are here and make adjustments as necessary in the future. But that is the only change. We're asking for you to amend it for that reason.
Any questions, Ms. Lees?
President,
Mr. O'Connor?
I believe we need to make a motion to amend 42-10-19.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to amend ordinance 42-10-19. This will be a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries 9-0.
President,
Mr. O'Connor?
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 42-10-19, salary ordinance for elected officials for the city of Noblesville, as amended.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the salary ordinance 42-10-19 as amended. This will be a roll call vote. Ms. Lees?
Mr. Jensen?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor?
Aye.
Mr. Peterson?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Wiles?
Aye.
Mr. Boyce?
Aye.
Mr. Hampton?
Aye.
Mr. Ayers?
Aye.
9-0, the ordinance is adopted.
Thank you. Council to consider ordinance 44-10-19, an ordinance appropriating the proceeds of the local income tax refunding revenue bonds of 2019. Mr. Spalding?
Yes, Mr. President, members of the council, Jeff Spalding, City Controller, and this ordinance probably is about as close to a non-event as you can have in a legislative action. This bond, if you'll recall, is that you authorized at the last meeting, is a refunding, so it's a refinancing of an existing debt. And so the proceeds that are coming from this bond are just to pay off the existing debt for the previous bond and some, very minimal closing costs. So the appropriating action is really just kind of executing technically a part of this refunding, and the proceeds will just be used to pay off that existing debt, and then we'll pay on this bond. And just as a reminder, the refinancing does save the city about $500,000 over the next 9 years. So with that.
With that, any questions of Mr. Spalding?
President,
Mr. O'Connor?
I'd make a motion, we approve.
Need to open the public.
Oops, sorry.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Oh, yes. I'll make a motion, to open the
I was
public.
going to say, I can.
For ordinance 44-10-19.
We've opened the public hearing for ordinance 44-10-19. Mr. Jensen.
Mr. President, I would make a motion, seeing that no one's come forward to speak, that we close the public hearing for ordinance 44-10-19.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. That'll be a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries 9-0.
Mr. President,
Mr. O'Connor.
I will make a motion, now that the public hearing is closed, to approve ordinance 44-10-19, ordinance appropriating the proceeds of the local income tax, refunding revenue bonds.
Second.
It's been moved to approve ordinance 44-10-19. That'll be a roll call vote. Ms. Lees?
Mr. O'Connor?
Aye.
Mr. Peterson? Aye. Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Wiles? Aye. Mr. Boyce?
Aye.
Mr. Hampton?
Aye.
Mr. Jensen?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Ayers? 9-0, the ordinance is adopted.
Council to consider ordinance 45-10-19, an ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of bonds of the city for the purpose of providing funds to be used for the cost of funding certain capital projects together with all necessary, well, I got this right. Appurtenances, related improvements and equipment in connection therewith. Mr. Spalding.
Yes. This item is, I would suppose the best way to think about it is kind of a companion item related to the budget in that we, talked about the fact that there were certain capital projects that we are proceeding to fund with this tool rather than out of the operational department budgets. And this is the second reading for this ordinance. It was introduced at the last council meeting, and it just authorizes the city to issue a one-year bond to, provide that kind of funding to address some of those capital needs.
Any questions of Mr. Spalding?
Mr. President,
Mr. O'Connor.
make a motion, we approve ordinance 45-10-19.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 45-10-19. This will be a roll call vote. Ms. Lees?
Mr. Peterson?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Wiles?
Aye.
Mr. Boyce?
Aye.
Mr. Hampton?
Aye.
Mr. Jensen?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor?
Aye.
Mr. Ayers? 9-0, the ordinance is adopted.
Thank you. Council will consider ordinance 46-10-19, an ordinance appropriating the proceeds of the capital project short-term general obligation bonds of 2019. Mr. Spalding.
Again, similar to the ordinance number 44, this is an action, second reading, appropriating bond proceeds. In this case, it's the proceeds from this bond authorization that you just executed. And the way this language is written is it just defines certain types of capital expenditures that are eligible uses of these funds and puts in place the language that allows the debt proceeds from this bond to be used for the capital projects that we were talking about. So,
Any questions, Mr. Spalding? With that, I'd like to open the public hearing for ordinance 46-10-19.
President,
Mr. Boyce.
seeing no public coming forward for public hearing ordinance 46-10-19, I motion we close the public hearing.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. That'll be a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries 9-0.
Mr. President,
Ms. Wiles.
I would make a motion that we approve ordinance number 46-10-19.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 46-10-19. This will be a roll call vote. Ms. Lees.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Wiles?
Aye.
Mr. Boyce?
Aye.
Mr. Hampton?
Aye.
Mr. Jensen?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor?
Aye.
Mr. Peterson?
Aye.
Mr. Air?
Aye.
9-0, the ordinance is adopted.
Thank you. Miscellaneous number 1. Council will consider Resolution RC-15-19, a resolution authorizing certain appropriation transfers for the year-end fiscal administration. Mr. Spaulding.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the council, this ordinance is actually a repeat of something that we did last year, so it may look familiar to some of you. It's not related to the 2020 budget. It's related to year-end closeout for 2019. And essentially, what this ordinance does is it authorizes the controller to make certain appropriation transfers at year-end beneath a threshold of $50,000 to address any, for lack of a better word, unavoidable gaps or shortfalls that occur in the budget as you're closing out the year, paying final bills, that type of thing. The appropriations, as established in law, are really defined in a fairly low level of detail. You have appropriations by fund, by department, by major expense series, 100 series, 200 series, 300 series, 400 series for personnel, supplies, services, and capital. And so from a very official standpoint, the way the state looks at those things, each of those little buckets is a budget that needs to be fully funded. And occasionally, as you're closing out the year, there are certain expenses that come along that may throw one of those numbers negative, but that can usually be resolved by a transfer that's budget neutral. And this ordinance basically authorizes me to make those types of transfers at year end to correct for those shortfalls. And then the other thing, for accountability purposes, it also includes a provision that I have to report those transfers back to the council by the first council meeting in February, so you can see what actions happened, and if there are any questions or concerns, they can be addressed at that point in time. So it's not just carte blanche to shuffle things around. It's very defined. So, and like I said, we did the same thing at the end of 2018. So this is setting up that same type of authority for closing out 2019.
President, I do have one question. Is this the same number as last year? Did the 50 move?
Yes, yeah, the threshold was 50,000 last year.
Last year too.
Yeah.
And a follow-up to that, is this something that we just have to do every year?
Yeah, some of this stuff is unavoidable, and I said this last year. The goal is that each year we'll get better and better and better, and the amount of things that get handled through this type of year-end transfer will become smaller and smaller, but I don't think it will ever go away. It's kind of a natural result of the way the budget is structured, and the fact that there are certain things that happen so late in the year that there's not another council meeting that you can come to and resolve them, because you're closing out year end, and by the time you get to December 31, there's no council meeting left in December to go and get the transfer approved. So,
Other questions of Mr. Spaulding?
President,
Mr. O'Connor.
I'd make a motion that we approve resolution RC-15-19.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve resolution RC 15-19. This will be a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries 9-0. Thank you, Mr. Spalding. Miscellaneous number 2, council to consider resolution RC-16-19, a resolution establishing the maximum civil city property tax rate for 2020 and authorizing the controller to request the rate be codified by the Indiana Department of Local Government Finance. Mr. Spalding.
Yes, this actually is a new concept this year, but I think it's a good one, and it's really some accountability that the council puts on me as the controller. And for those of you that are on the Finance Committee, you've heard some fairly in-depth discussion about the process that municipalities have to go through in terms of publishing both their budget and their levies and their tax rates and some of the kind of, crazy Rubik's Cube aspects to how you have to go through that process with the Department of Local Government Finance and yet provide yourself flexibility to be able to execute what you need to do locally. But at the end of the day, there is a process by which each community finalizes their property tax rate, and as we have all discussed in here, the intention for the city of Noblesville is to have a tax rate that's no higher than $1.10 for 2020 for our civil city total combined tax rate, and this resolution goes through a bunch of, relatively potentially confusing whereas clauses, but at the end of the day, it's basically saying, when I have to go through that process with the DLGF, that process happens in December or January, when I go through that process, I cannot establish a tax rate that's higher than $1.10. And so this resolution has the council bind me to that requirement, and so that's the purpose of it.
Any questions of Mr. Spalding?
President,
Ms. Miles.
I'd make a motion that we approve miscellaneous number 2, resolution RC-16-19.
Second.
And moved and seconded to approve resolution RC-16-19. This will be a hand vote. All those in favor? Motion carries 9-0. Thank you, Mr. Spalding.
Thank you.
You get a break.
Yeah.
Miscellaneous number 3, council to consider resolution RC-17-19, a resolution regarding a development agreement. Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. President and council members. Before you tonight is a resolution requesting the approval of an economic development agreement between NextSpine LLC, Ellsbury Holdings LLC, and the City of Noblesville. Before I review the details of the development agreement, I would like to first talk to you about NextSpine. NextSpine is located at 14425 Bergen Boulevard in the Saxony Business Park near exit 210 here in Noblesville. They are a very successful medical device company focusing on designing, manufacturing, and distributing innovative spinal solutions of the most technologically advanced platforms in order to treat painful and debilitating spinal injuries. 100% of NextSpine's spinal implants and 95% of surgical instruments are designed and manufactured in-house in Noblesville. The NextSpine teams collaborate closely with surgeons to innovate and improve upon spinal procedures, resulting in elevated surgical efficiency and patient provisions. NextSpine has greatly impacted the evolution of spinal surgery and patient outcomes and continuously pursues technological advancements to develop a robust and effective product offering. NextSpine has contributed to the Noblesville community by participating in the Noblesville High School internship program. They've actually contributed to that from the onset of the program, and has given to the community through various sponsorships and outreach opportunities. They were also part of the Economic Development Department's Made in Noblesville CEO Summits and 2-year executive group meetings. Next Spine, as the mayor said, celebrated their 10-year anniversary this past October 11th. Due to the organic growth and the addition of a significant global customer, Next Spine has outgrown their current lease space and they need to expand. Months ago, they commenced a search for a site or an existing building that would satisfy their required expansion needs. The proposed agreement before you outlines the project expansion details as well as a request for assistance. Next Spine has recently been given the opportunity to purchase the entire approximate 72,000 square foot building where they are located. The building is now under contract. Next Spine would like to invest $500,000 in internal real property improvements. They wish to invest $1.5 million in the purchase of new personal property by the end of 2022. Next Spine will retain 50 employees and will hire 25 new employees by the end of 2022. Average wage for all jobs is $58,000 a year, not including benefits. In consideration of these details, the agreement asks for a 10-year real property tax phase-in on the $500,000 invested in internal improvements, and that modeling is available in your packet. A 5-year personal property tax phase-in on their $1.5 million equipment investment. This is also modeled in your packet. It includes a cash grant reimbursement of $250,000 that would commence when they have provided proof of purchase through invoices of $250,000 of personal property purchases of the overall $1.5 million of personal property investment. After they purchase the first $250,000 of personal property, the city will pay them 20% of the following purchases up to that $105 million investment they're making, but at a cap of $250,000. The cash grant will come from the Economic Incentive Revolving Fund, which is Fund 130, a fund established by an ordinance passed in August of 2018 and whose purpose was to attract and retain desirable investment in Noblesville. This fund will be reimbursed from the corporate campus East TIF revenue, and the schedule of repayment is seen in Exhibit B of the development agreement. As part of the compliance portion of this agreement, the company must be engaged in the community for the betterment of Noblesville. During annual compliance review, the company will give an overview of their community engagement. This development agreement proposal was presented to both the Economic Development Council Committee as well as the Council Finance Committee, was positively received, and thus has moved before you tonight. Our goal with this agreement is to retain Next Spine. We want them to stay here and to continue to grow here in Noblesville. In the council chambers tonight representing Next Spine are Matt Cole, CFO for Next Spine, and Chad Sweeney, Senior Principal of Genovis. Andy Ellsbury, President of Next Spine, was planning on being here this evening, but got called away at the last minute, and he sends his regards. And they are willing to answer any questions for you, as am I.
Any questions of Ms. Johnson? I wanted to see all the little bolts and all the little cool
Right.
stuff they make, because
It's pretty
really-
amazing.
I mean, yeah, without seeing it, nobody has a clue what they do down there, but
Peyton Manning in the neck piece. How many parts do you have in the inventory? We were told the other day, but I can't remember. Was it thousands?
individual items, we have up to 23,000.
22,000 items in inventory, and they are slammed in their location right now.
Any questions? That's that?
Mr. President?
Mr. O'Connor.
Sure. I'd move to approve miscellaneous number 3, resolution RC-17-19.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution RC-17-19. This will be a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries 9-0. Thank you, and thank you for continuing in Noblesville.
Thank you.
Transfer number 1, council to consider transfer TA-14-19 to transfer in the Downtown Development Fund for the Street Department for the purchase of flower pots. A little lighter presentation, Mr. Spaulding.
Yeah, Mr. President, members of the council, Jeff Spaulding, City Controller, and if I might, I'll explain both of these together because they're kind of two peas in a pod.
Peas in a pot.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'll go ahead and read. Transfer number 2, council to approve transfer TA-15-19, a transfer in the local road and street LRS fund for the street department to purchase asphalt and concrete.
All right, so essentially, both of these actions are really budgetary housekeeping items. The street department has identified some expenses that they wish to incur, and incurring those expenses in the proper way, they need to transfer funds in their budget to the proper expense series. I talked about that before, the 100, 200, 300, and 400 series. And so all of these two transfers are just basically reallocating the funds within the street department's budget to execute a couple of things they want to accomplish. And I'll use the first one as an example to give you an idea that the purchase of the flower pots was the original idea there was that was going to be contracted out as a service, and the street department later decided, well, we're not going to contract that out, we're going to purchase the pots directly ourselves, and so this is just moving the money to the proper place in the budget for the purchase of pots rather than contracting for them. So that's it.
Any questions of Mr. Spaulding?
Mr. President,
Mr. O'Connor.
I would move that we approve transfer number 1, TA-14-19.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve transfer TA-14-19. This will be a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you.
President,
Mr. O'Connor.
I'd also move that we approve transfer number 2, TA-15-19.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve transfer TA-15-19. This will be a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries 9-0. Thank you. Do we have any council comments? Mr. Jensen.
Mr. I was remiss earlier with the budget process, but I did want to reiterate my thanks to the administration, but also to Ms. Wiles and Mr. O'Connor, kind of the budget gurus, and Ms. Wiles headed up the Finance Committee. So thank you both for the time, and I know it's a tedious task when you're talking $70+ million, and just appreciate all the time that you all put into the effort here. And I think we did a great job, doing our best job to save taxpayers as much money as possible and run as lean a government as we can while providing the service. So thank you again.
So we need to include Mr. Taylor and yourself.
Mr. Taylor,
in the
yes,
Finance Committee.
sorry, Mr. Taylor as well, the Finance Committee, so, thank you.
Mr. President.
Ms. Wiles.
I would just like to ask for a moment of silence that sadly the Noblesville basketball community lost another outstanding member with the passing of Tony Etchison with a farming accident last week. His family has been around the Hamilton County, Noblesville community for a very long time, and so our hearts and prayers go out to that family who are going through a difficult loss, but they know that through the support and the prayers of others that they will help to get through this.
All right, let's do a moment of silence for Mr. Tony Etchison. He was my insurance agent for years. Great guy. So, thank you. Any other council comments?
Well, I guess
You're all things Noblesville sports.
Yeah, we could
so,
leave on a lighter note. Again, our thoughts and prayers with the family, the Etchinsons. But the Noblesville girls soccer team. They won the semi-state championship, and they are moving on to the state championship. They play this week. They take on some team from Carmel. So it's the Noblesville girls against Carmel, and I think they're playing it at Fishers. So that's an interesting Hamilton County. So good luck to the Noblesville girls soccer team.
Saturday.
I think it's Saturday, too. So we wish them the best.
Would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the boys' effort. They got to the semi-state and lost
Absolutely.
2-1 to Lake Central, but
Cross-country team.
quite a game.
Well.
And what about the band?
For the Millers. Yeah, what about the band?
The band, I will share that the Marching Millers, who are two-time State Fair defending champions, switched over to a different division, and they are making it to semi-state competition this Saturday at Van Davis High School. So hopefully they'll
Awesome.
move on to state, but if not, they are thrilled to make it to semi-state in this new division.
That's great.
A lot of semi-states, that's pretty awesome.
It is good.
Any other council comments? With that, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved to adjourn. Second, all those in favor, raise your hand.